Okay. Did you get on?
Kayleen, are we ready to have the commissioner start the meeting?
Yes, City of Sebastian has texted me and told me they're recording also. Go ahead.
Go. All right.
It's all yours, Commissioner. We're ready to go.
Wonderful. Well, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. At this time, we generally have a pledge of allegiance. So I guess we'll all just kind of stand where we are and go ahead and pledge. So if everybody join me in that. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
United States of America, the Republic, which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. I know that was a little awkward, but probably some things that are going to be a little odd today in general from our normal meeting. So if everybody would just bear with me, and I will do my best to get us through this in some kind of normal fashion. So before we start, I just want to ask Carolyn Anze, our legal counsel, to make just a kind of a brief statement on why we're having the Zoom meeting and what you guys need to know about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board and members of the public. This morning we are conducting our IRL Council Board meeting via remote technology, and we're using the Zoom platform. This is made possible by executive orders and amendments to those executive orders entered by Governor DeSantis as it relates to the COVID emergency. Normally, special districts of the state of Florida, like the IRL Council, are required to have meetings in the public without the use of this type of technology. And so therefore, the executive order had specific language that allowed us to conduct this meeting today. The meeting will be hosted and run, and we're going to turn it over to Kayleen Wheeler here in a minute to kind of give some specifics as to how the platform will work. A recording of the meeting is being made and will be kept in the public record for the IRL Council. And it's just important, I guess, that as we go forward, if anyone has any problems, to speak up and allow staff to try to correct them. But we've been doing these meetings this week through the management conference, and they've gone pretty smoothly, all things considered. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Wheeler to add any further instructions she may have as it relates to how the muting and the speaker, et cetera, will work.
Good morning. Please note again that this meeting is being recorded. It's also being recorded by the City of Sebastian at this time. Additionally, all chat conversations will also be recorded and preserved for public record. As we adjust to online meetings, we want to share the following logistical information. All attendees are muted and must be unmuted in order to be heard. For those participating via computer, the raise hand tool is an icon at the bottom of your screen, or in the participants box, or in the chat box. You need to raise your hand to speak. If you cannot find the raise the hand feature, please send a chat message over and we will work with you from there. If you are attending via phone, dial *9 to mute or unmute yourself. The meeting host will see a list of everyone who wants to speak and will unmute and call on those individuals one at a time. Attendees will remain muted until specific moments on the agenda when public comment is accepted. Members of the public who wish to give public comment will be unmuted to speak one at a time. Prior to speaking, all public comment speakers are requested to please state your name and residence or affiliation for the official record.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Kayleen. And just as a matter of housekeeping, as we move through the agenda, I'm going to call for a yay or nay vote. So if you have a nay, please let us know that, except for our budget items, and those will be roll call votes for our board members. With that, we will move into introduction of council board members and our special guests. Today we have with us Aaron Watkins with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection.
Morning.
Welcome, good morning. We have Jackie Thurlow-Lipich with South Florida Water Management District. Doug Bornique with the St. Johns River Water Management District.
Good morning.
We have Councilwoman Billy Wheeler with Volusia County.
Good morning.
Welcome. And Commissioner Kurt Smith with Brevard County will be joining us a little bit later. He'll be joining us shortly. So we look forward to seeing him. We have Commissioner Chris Zadowski with St. Lucie County, who's actually in the office there. Good morning, Chris. And Commissioner Stacy Hetherington from Martin County will be joining us a little late. She is tied up in a commission meeting right now, but will be with us shortly as well. And then I'm Commissioner Susan Adams with Indian River County, and I'm the chair of the Indian River Lagoon Council. We also have with us today and our special guest, very excited to have Senator Debbie Mayfield. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Susan.
We also, I believe, have her legislative assistants, Adrian Kronbaugh and Caitlin Curry. So welcome, ladies. It's wonderful to have you all on the call today. We also have joining us today as representatives of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Vince Baccalan, Partnership Programs Branch at EPA Headquarters. We have Jennifer DeMeo, Environmental Scientist with EPA Region 4. Always good to see you, Jennifer. We have Tom McGill, Oceans, Wetlands, Steams, Protections Branch Chief with EPA Region 4. Welcome. And we have Natalie Ellington, the Oceans and Estuarine Management Section Chief for EPA Region 4. Welcome. And is there anybody else, elected officials or staff who joined that I've not introduced? Okay, well, if anybody does join, just feel free to let us know. At this time, we'll take any agenda additions or deletions. Are there any agenda revisions at this time? Seeing none, we'll need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
That's a motion by Doug, and I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is no resolutions or recognition letters or awards. So we will move on to item 5, which is public comment. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Senator Mayfield if she'd like to make any comments.
Good morning, Susan and committee and Dwayne. Thank you guys for allowing me to be part of your meeting this morning. Dwayne and I had been talking, and he had asked that I actually just join and give kind of an update on our water quality budget this year. And as you know, we did pass a $93.2 billion budget on March 19th, and it is still waiting for the governor's signature. But in the environmental area, I think did very well this year. We put $690 million in water quality projects, which was more than the governor had asked in his budget to continue with water quality. As you know, last year we had a very successful year too when it comes to our environment and our water quality. Just some items I think that are worthy of noting as part of that is there was $322 million that was put into the Everglades restoration to continue that project. The Springs restoration, we had $50 million, and alternative water supplies, we put $40 million, and then the $198 million for water quality improvement. And that 198 million is going to be very important to our community because part of that is 25 million for septic to sewer and wastewater programs, as well as 25 million to reduce TMDL. And there was 25 million for water quality for the northern Florida rivers, which is part of Suwannee, Apalachicola, and St. John. But we were also able to get 25 million in there for water quality improvements just for the Indian River Lagoon. And St. John's Water Management District will be the lead agency on that will oversee that $25 million for those water quality improvements. In addition, we did statewide about 76.2 million for general water projects. And then there was 33 million to improve water quality for the algae bloom breakout that we have. In addition to that, on the environmental side, we also did Florida Forever, totaled 100 million this year. And so, you know, we continue to make sure that we're protecting our Florida way of life. There was 134 projects that was part of our local community parks projects, which I'm sure all the county commissioners are very aware of. And that was 12.3 million funded as part of that. And that actually completely funded every grant program that every city or county had for their park facility. So, you know, there was a lot of money that we put in for the environmental this year. Another big issue that we were able to accomplish, as most of you know, is the Senate Bill 712, which was a huge undertaking for us to do, and it's because it does change the way that we look at the way that we are monitoring our waterways. One big aspect of it is that we transferred the septic tank permitting from the Department of Health to DEP. And that was, something that we felt is more important, and people, quite frankly, had been asking for that to happen. Another thing that we looked at in the 712 was really looking at the impact that wastewater treatment facilities are having on our impact, and we changed the way that they're going to be reporting, and they do have to do reports to DEP now to ensure that they are maintaining their facilities properly and they have money in reserves on it. So, there's a lot that was part of 712 that hit every area. It hit the ag, it hit the wastewater treatment, it hit stormwater runoff, it hit septic to sewer. So it was a big part of our effort towards making sure our waterways are kept clean going forward. So I think we had a very successful session this year. We had 4.8 million in local projects that Brevard and Indian River County was successful in getting in. Now, with all of this said, I will tell you the governor has line item veto for the budget, and we are still waiting for him to request the budget in order for him to review and make those decisions. Our staff, or my staff, has been tasked to make sure that our community is aware when that budget is sent over to him, and so that you can put your input in all your projects that you are passionate about, to make sure that he understands and is aware of how important it is to our community, as well as any legislative bill that was passed like 712, which he has not requested that bill yet to look at, that we're still waiting for his signature on. So as we get more information, we will make sure that we are getting it out to you so that you can be engaged in this process and getting your thoughts and input into the governor's office. You can also make sure that you copy our office on, and we will ensure that it also gets to him as well. So with that, Susan, I will turn it back over to you unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate so much all the hard work you're doing up there for us. Does anybody have any questions for Senator Mayfield at this time? No? Okay, well, again.
It looks like Doug may be trying to come in. While he's working on his mute button, Madam Chair, this is Dwayne DeFreeze. I just wanted to go on the record and thank Senator Mayfield and her team. That 712 is a big and comprehensive water bill, historic, for Florida. And I know how hard the senator and her team worked to make that happen. And just want to thank her for all of the efforts that, that happened along the session. And also thank you for the open door policy, because I drop in on occasion, unannounced, and every single time I did, I had the information I needed in a timely fashion. So our staff were very accommodating and always on top of the legislation. So, it was an easy session for me to figure out what was moving and what wasn't. And Senator, thank you so much for all your efforts on behalf of the Lagoon and how you accommodate my drop-in. So I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome, Dwayne. Anytime, you're welcome. And anyone in our community, that is, that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that your voice is heard and that we're taking care of your needs, and we're providing you the information that you need in order to help us be successful in our community. So thank you for all your work, hard work too. And he is up there a lot, guys. I don't know if you realize it, but Dwayne is, he is beating on the doors of all the legislators to make sure they're aware of how important our area is to the state. So thank you, Dwayne, for all your work as well.
And Mr. Watkins, did you have a comment?
Likewise, I just want to thank Senator Mayfield and her leadership and all the committee's work. The department's really excited about this legislation and looking forward to getting it implemented and getting to work on it. So thank you for this. It's groundbreaking and we're really excited.
Thank you.
Doug, did you get your unmute?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. No, I just wanted to echo Dwayne's comments from before this council was birthed. Debbie approached me and said, "What can I do?" I never dreamed we'd have such a hard-hitting senator willing to carry our water to this level. This is just a dream, having a local state senator willing to go to the mat for us and to make this a reality. Debbie, I can't thank you enough for making what's happening. And I know you're the one carrying the heavy weight and doing the heavy lifting up there. So thank you on behalf of the St. John's and all that we do.
Thank you, Doug. You guys are really way too kind, but this is a team effort, and I love what I'm doing, and I enjoy it so much. And so it's really not work to me, but we just have to continue. This is the start, and we can't keep, we got to keep our eye on the ball, because everyone that's been in this process is for a while understands that this is today's color, next week's color, next year's color could be different. And so while we have everyone's ear, and while it is in the forefront of everyone, we have to strike while it's hot, and we cannot let up, and we have to keep pushing forward to make sure the things that we have in place continue to stay in place and is followed through. And that's where our community's hard work comes into play, to make sure no one forgets. So again, kudos to all of you guys, and thank you so much for the kind remarks. But it really is a team effort, and support from the community really makes it a lot easier to make it happen.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it so much. And the ball's rolling, and we're going to do our best to help you keep it going in the right direction. So we look forward to keeping to work on this in the future.
Thank you, Susan. And I have to jump off, guys, to another conference call. My staff is going to continue to stay on the line. And I don't know if Jake Diamond was able to be on here with us, but he is a new hire. Just started this week. He will be responsible for Indian River County, and and also the south part of Brevard County, where he happens to live in that area. So please, I'll be getting Jake around. He'll be getting out into the community as well. So I'm looking forward to you guys meeting him as well and working with him. So thank you, Susan, very much, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay, we'll move on to, I believe the EPA has some comments. Vince Farrakhan, or or Jennifer? I'm not sure. Vince, did you have some comments?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm sorry. You're good to go.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just want to take a few moments this morning to talk about the national reporting results for leveraging ratio. My name is Vince Backland. I work here at headquarters in EPA headquarters in Washington, D.C. I lead the leveraging reporting, and I'm also managing the NEP online reporting tool, which is affectionately called NEPort, for everyone who's reporting leveraging results to us on an annual basis. I will focus on the left-hand side of the figure this morning to give you some a national scope. But before I do that, I just want to go over a few terms that may be helpful to so you guys can give a context about like what these figures mean. So for leveraging, we use it as a way, it's basically as our metric of success, and it also is an indicator for our strength, for the strength of our program. Program with a big P in terms of the national program, but also individually for the 28 estuary programs across the nation. And in terms of the definition that we use in NEP speak, we use leveraging in terms of above and beyond what is provided by Section 320 funds, so basically your base funding. And so an example of that is your match. And that is what you use for every dollar that you get from EPA. And it comes in two forms. It gets reported as cash and in-kind, and it gets reported in one of three categories. It's either primary, significant, or support. But today we'll just focus on the primary because this is where the NEP is actually taking the lead role in procuring these resources. They have the direct direct involvement in making sure that these resources actually are happening. And really another way of saying it is, would not have happened without the NEP's involvement in this. So this is where we get the primary terminology from. You might see there on the legend, the primary leveraging dollars, the PLD. Basically, it is our way of saying that this is basically the minimum that you have to meet. So again, using the match as an example, for every dollar that EPA provides to every NEP, that you have to match that one-to-one. And so as you can see in the graph there, it is definitely more than one-to-one. So I guess the first take-home message there is that this program, the NEP, it's incredible in terms of leveraging its resources for the small EPA investment that it's making in the nation. And as you can see there, as of 2019, we've leveraged 6.3 billion, and this is over just under 300 million that's been provided to date. So that's quite incredible. I mean, in drafting this figure here on the left, I had to use two different scales here. On the left hand, that's in billions with a B. And on the right-hand side in orange is in millions, because, while, the two graphs there may be superimposed to each other, they're on different scales. It's just going to give you the breadth of how much this program is really doing in terms of the leveraging. The second point that I wanted to make is on the left-hand side there, where the dotted line is that corresponds to the dotted box, is that it corresponds to the annual average of what we've leveraged so far collectively as a group on an annual basis since 2006. And as you can see there, it is a lot higher than what the program has received to date. So, you know, for every year, we're basically leveraging, what is that, 453 million on an annual basis on a running average basis. And this is a total of just under 300 million so far to date. So that's incredible. The third point that I'd like to make is the PLR, which is the primary leveraging ratio, which is below the graph there, 22:1. Another way of saying it, and I know Dwayne and your products are really keying in on this, is the return on investment. That's really another way of saying that. It's basically for every dollar, EPA dollar that's provided, you're basically returning it in 22 NEP dollars. So in terms of our currency here, we're really pretty strong, and you know, the trend has been up over the years, and as you can see, it's going to continue to go up as we continue this leveraging effort. You might be wondering, okay, so where all of these you know, these investments are being made, and so the bottom categories there, the leveraging investments so far since 2006, that's where all the monies, at least the primary leveraging, are going into. And in these three categories that you see here, based on the 28 NEPs since 2006, basically account for 2/3, about 67% of the total. Just going to give you an idea, there are about 10 categories of investments that that are available when the NEPs report out their investments. So these are generally in estimates. So just the three categories themselves over time basically account for the, you know, the majority or 2/3 of it. So I think the last take-home message that I want to leave is that it really speaks to the NEP's critical role in their community and how it serves its stakeholders by implementing and being able to implement the actions in our CCMP. So thank you for the time, and I guess if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer now or later.
Are there any questions for Vince? Seeing none. Vince, we appreciate the update, and that's all good news.
Thank you.
I believe Commissioner Smith has joined us from Brevard County. So welcome, Commissioner Smith. It's good to see you and have you with us today. Jennifer, did you want to add anything? There you go.
Okay. Hey, Kayleen, can you go back to the previous slide?
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. So thanks, Vince. So while Vince went over the national, what we wanted to do is if you look at the figure on the right, we wanted to take a moment to kind of delve into the national investments and pull out what specifically from the Indian River Lagoon NEP has leveraged in terms of y'all's primary role. And again, just kind of regurgitating what Vince said, what primary is primary indicates, you know, what the NEP director, staff, and or, you know, the committee members have played a central role in obtaining the leverage resources that helped implement the CCMP. So again, we're just focusing on that primary role that the management conference has done. So what have you guys done? So we went into the national numbers and we pulled out what the IRL has done. So you can see from the graph on the right that the IRL NEP really follows the national trend with its local partners. But also what we found really interesting too is if you wanted to pull your attention to the year 2015, which is when, as we know, the IRL NEP was restructured to not only handle the Clean Water Act money for projects being a grant program, but to also really incentivize local commitments. And that was one of the main reasons why we restructured, right? We wanted to do more with the IRL NEP. So as you can see, your success in achieving that goal, if you look at 2015. You can see that in 2015 onward. So, you know, the NEPs are typically a really good example of this, of incentivizing local commitments. But since 2015, I feel like, you know, the IRL NEP has really done an outstanding job with this, especially looking at the primary leveraging ratio, where, as Vince said, the national is PLR is 22 NEP dollars to $1. Well, we have 33 IRL dollars. So I just wanted to really point that out, give you guys a congratulations on a job well done, especially since restructuring since from 2015 on. I think this is a huge, you know, a huge point to make in commemorating your success of the restructuring. It's a great indicator of that we're on the right path. And yeah, I definitely didn't want that to go unnoticed. So with that, we'll hand that over to Daniel. Thank you guys so much.
Before we do,
thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Vince. So
I think we may have a question.
Did you have
Chris?
You there? Yes. Actually, I was just wondering, because of the great noise we have, sorry, I have a little echo. Should they give us extra points for when we ask for more money? Just a thought.
Well, it's a good thing Vince is on the line, because we submit those requests to headquarters. So
I'm not shy. We have a lot of work to do, and we are very appreciative of our relationship, and you know, we want to prove that we're doing the right thing. So having done so and seeing it in the dollars and cents and the data, I'm always asking for, if we're showing a good response, that we sometimes get an opportunity to do better with additional funding. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that reputation definitely proves itself when EPA is looking at supplemental funding, and the IRL NEP has definitely been the recipient of supplemental funding in previous years. And I can only expect that it will be the recipient in future years, but you know.
Yeah, I'll do as much as I can at headquarters to make sure that any supplemental funds are funneled your way. I mean, I try to be as unbiased as I can, because I also manage other NEPs, but IRL has a soft spot in my heart. So Dwayne knows this, and staff knows this. So
Thanks, Vince.
Hey, Madam Chair, before we go to Dan, I just wanted to jump in and thank the entire EPA team. You all don't see it on the day-to-day, but we really do have a daily almost working relationship with our EPA partners, both in Region 4 and in headquarters. So I just want to thank you guys for all the support and work. And then to Commissioner Zadowski's question, when we get to the end of this agenda, I'll give you an update on the federal funding side of things. But thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes.
And for all your support. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do appreciate all of y'all being here with us and your continued support. We know it's kind of a crazy time right now, and taking the time out to join us we really do appreciate the partnership, and we look forward to it continuing very strongly in the coming years. So thank you again. Daniel, I think you're up.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to kind of look at this just in a little bit different light. So the way EPA does their leveraging, they look at the watershed as a total. So all different partners add into that entire amount. So I wanted to kind of just drill into what are the projects that are being submitted in, that are awarded by our council. What kind of match are they bringing to the table, and how has that changed over the years? So if you look in the first couple of years, you know, a lot of the projects we were funding was just a one-to-one match. But then as the council started really ramping up, we started to get a lot more projects where people had a lot of money already invested in the project. And there was a little dip last year, but as you can see this upcoming year, it's really starting to skyrocket, and the dotted line is the trend line. So we're seeing more and more people that are asking for council funds already have a big portion of funds in the game. So that's all I really want to point out with this graph right here.
Awesome. Is there any questions for either Vince, Jennifer, or Daniel at this time on the report? I think it's wonderful to see how much we're able to leverage with that match. Okay. At this time, I'm just to kind of keep the agenda moving somewhat or as smoothly as possible, I suppose. I'm going to take comments after each agenda item if people have a public comment on a specific item. So with that being said, is there anybody that has a general public comment at this time? Okay. If not, then we will move on to water quality reports. And our first water quality report is Central and Northern Lagoon, Dr. Chuck Jacoby. Welcome, Dr. Jacoby.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. So I'm going to walk through some of the continuous monitoring data that we've collected since the beginning of 2020, and then I'll give you the update on where seagrasses stand. So the first thing here is salinities. And if you look at this graph, you can see that in Mosquito Lagoon and then south at Vero, that's where the salinities have been the highest. And they've been more moderate in the middle of the lagoon. So Mosquito Lagoon, particularly the southern end where this sensor sits, undergoes a lot of evaporation and tends to get higher salinities. Further south at Vero, you have the inlets that, again, alter the salinities. Let's see. Kayleen, are you doing this or am I?
Yes, sir, I'm doing it. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm next one, thanks.
Oh, hang on, sorry. Multitasking.
Thank you. Temperatures have risen sort of since March. So they're up in the 80s now, where they were it's a bit cooler before, more like so they're up in the around 82 or so, give or take. That's 28 degrees, which is about where they've been hovering, but they're fairly consistent from north to south. Next, thank you. Chlorophyll levels since sort of March have been pretty low. So certainly you get some peaks. Some of these peaks, because these are essentially raw data, they haven't been quality controlled or quality assured. Sometimes the optical sensor will see something that isn't actually chlorophyll and register that it is. So some of those peaks may not be real. Mostly, yeah, they've been fairly low. The field chlorophylls from April there were a few that probably were edging around 20, but most of them were below 10. So water clarity has been pretty good. The Secchi depths, generally speaking, were a meter plus, which oftentimes in a lot of places is the bottom. But water's been pretty clear. It's been a pretty quiet year. Next, please. Which means that things like dissolved oxygen, which is the thing that we would worry about if you had a big bloom and then a crash and the dissolved oxygen drops, those levels have been pretty good. So hovering around 8 milligrams per liter, and 2 is where you start to get a little bit of issues for fish and stuff. So again, it's been a pretty good year. Next, please. The 2019 seagrass maps, so the aerial imagery would have been taken in the spring of 2019. Those should be up on the website within a few weeks, hopefully, depending on how people can manage to do all that from remotely. But this is the kind of update. So the 2019 is the hash bar on the right-hand side. About 33,000 acres were mapped this past run, which is about 42% of the acreage that we had in 2007. So a tiny drop from 2017, but not a major change. I think that's it.
Okay, are there any questions for Dr. Jacoby? If you have a question and you're muted, just raise your hand, hit the raise your hand function, and we'll get you unmuted so we can do that. If it's a board member, you can unmute yourself. All right, seeing no questions for Dr. Jacoby. Thank you, Dr. Jacoby. We will move on to the St. Lucie County and Southern Lagoon water quality reports. Mr. Vega, I believe you're up first. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to report today the estimated total nitrogen and phosphorus load calculations for the C23 basin, C24 basin, and 10 Mile Creek. This is the rainfall. The rainfall for this past quarter was down about a, you know, 1¼ inch below average in the basins. Can you go on to the next slide, please? All right, and unfortunately, I apologize for this, but this is the wrong graph. I thought I'd sent a replacement, and I really didn't. But the total nitrogen was about 66.5 tons that was discharged into the North St. Lucie River this past quarter, and the total phosphorus was approximately 12¾ tons. That's based on the C23 S48 structure, the S49 South structure for the C24 basin, and the Gordy South for the 10 Mile Creek. Rainfall for March was actually lower. That's why I apologize for the graph here. I sent Kayleen the wrong chart. So again, I apologize for that, but it is a substantial reduction from last quarter. Last quarter, we had about 130 ton released and about 20 of nitrogen and about 25 tons of phosphorus. So it is a reduction primarily because there was a lot less rainfall. Other than that, I don't have anything else. That's pretty much it for me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vega.
Thank you.
So any questions for Mr. Vega? All right. Seeing none, we'll go.
You there? Hi.
Sorry.
Not a question. I just want to relay. We just got a warning yesterday that the Department of Health has indicated a high enteric bacteria at the jetty, which is the south end of the inlet. I have asked staff to look into the origins because we're not moving a lot of water out of Taylor Creek where you would expect to see those bacterias come in. So I'm actually reaching out to the local wastewater plant to see if they have had some kind of a challenge or an issue that may have spiked that bacteria, because it's an unusual place, especially on the south end of the jetty. So just a heads up on that enteric bacteria has been warned by the Department of Health in that section. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Vega? And we'll move on to Ms. Bose. Welcome, Katie.
All right, good morning, everyone. I wanted to start off with Happy Friday, some anecdotal things that we've seen lately. First on the left, we've had a lot of fishermen report healthy looking oyster populations in the kind of the mid St. Lucie estuary area. Also the middle picture and the one on the right were taken from Ms. Thurlow Lippish's blog. It's a pretty awesome blog if you want to check it out. But the middle picture shows some rebounding seagrass near Sandspret Park. And the picture on the right is baby queen conch, and that's probably been one of the biggest or largest amount of reports that we've gotten, are a lot of baby queen conch sightings near the sandbar. I've also had reports of people seeing sawfish further south in Palm Beach County. We can go to the next slide, please. So, you know, we can attribute maybe some of these anecdotal things to less activity on the water, or just, you know, random events, or possibly from the very low amount of freshwater runoff that we've had, and low stormwater runoff, like Mr. Vega just talked about. So in March, we had an average of 0 inches of rain. And the graph on the right shows the last couple weeks of 0 freshwater discharges from Lake Okeechobee. And that's been pretty much the whole year. Water has actually been being back pumped from the C-44 canal into the lake. And for the last, so this is taken from last week and the week prior, salinity in the lower IRL to the mid-estuary ranged between 20 to 28 in the mid-estuary, and in Speedy Point by Stewart, and then closer by Jensen Beach around 31 to 36. And similar with the pH in the mid-estuary and in Jensen Beach, kind of around 7.8 to 8.1. So we're looking pretty good in that regard. So next slide, please. So on the graph on the right shows the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. That black line on the bottom is the water shortage management band, and we've been teetering just above that line lately, which is why we haven't received any discharges. And they have increased the freshwater flows out to the Caloosahatchee, so that's been good. And just like we've seen rebounding seagrass in some areas in the estuary in the South IRL, that's also been prevalent in Lake O. That picture at the bottom are some Vallisneria beds that were really booming along the southwest shoreline Lake Okeechobee, and that was taken on March 25th. We've had a lot of reports of increased catch in the lake, hoping that those conditions can improve some of the lake ecology and help us out in the estuary and South IRL. Next slide, please. So despite, low rain, we still have had blue-green algae reports, mostly in the Port Mayaca area. If you look on this satellite image on the right, shows blue-green algae bloom potential, and you can get these reports every day off the NOAA website. This picture is showing moderate to high bloom potential. And the picture on the left are signs that the Department of Health has already posted in that area. And probably I got about 3 reports in April for blue-green algae presence in the county, but in Port Mayaca, and none in the estuary so far. Next slide, please. So this is also taken from Ms. Thorolibish's blog. Her aerial photo on April 4th shows blue-green algae bloom along the western end of the C-44 canal. And the picture on the right shows the bloom starting to wash up on April 14th in the lake right before the Port Mayaca Lock and Dam. So we've been keeping an eye every single day. We get a core lock operators report for algae presence near the S80 structure, which puts water into the estuary. So we're constantly, keeping an eye on things in our area. Next slide, please. This was, taken last week, but these are the FDEP blue-green algae samples taken in the last 30 days, and 5 out of 8 of those samples showed presence of microcystis. This one sample that was taken near Indiantown did not show presence, even though a week prior there was bloom reported in that area. I think that's it, but yeah, we're definitely just keeping an eye on things, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me anytime.
Are there any questions for Ms. Bose? No? All right, thank you, Katie. We appreciate the update.
Thank you.
All right, our next item we're going to be moving into is a presentation on the 2018-2019 independent audit. No,
we have the consent agenda first, Susan.
First, I'm so sorry. So the next item is going to be the consent agenda. There is a couple items on consent. We need to approve the minutes from the February 7th meeting, as well as our management conference appointments. Monty Falls, who did serve on the management board with the city of Vero Beach, has been promoted to their city manager. So we will be replacing him with Matthew Pitts. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Does anybody need to pull anything from consent? If not, then we'll need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, Wheeler.
Thank you.
Second, Watkins.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Wheeler, a second by Mr. Watkins. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. All right, and then the next item is going to be our presentation of audit. So that will be the 2018-2019 independent audit report. And I believe we are having that pulled up right now. And Daniel is going to be handling that. So I will turn it over to you, Daniel. Bear with us for a second.
Okay. Thank you. So I just wanted to introduce James Halloran from James Moore and Company. He will be doing the presentation on our audit for 2018-2019. And I think I'm trying to get Michael from SDS to get in here too. He's offline right now, but he just emailed me. So if he comes in, I'll introduce him and he can speak if need be. So I'll turn it over to James Halloran right now.
Good morning, everyone. James Halloran with James Moore and Company CPAs. We're up in Daytona Beach, up in the wonderful Volusia County, where Billy Wheeler is from. So good morning, everyone. This is your audit as of the year ended September 30th, 2019. And first, of course, I'd like to thank Daniel and the staff over at SDS, Michael and his folks, for assisting us in completing the information for us to do the audit. Next page, please, is the independent auditor's report. And there's a couple of them in the financial statements. What you'll see is 4 different reports with James Moore and Company's letterhead. The rest of the financial statements are, of course, the responsibility of Indian River Lagoon Council's management. And so always keep that in mind. Our option, or what we do here, is provide an opinion on those financial statements and some other reports. So the first one is the financial statement. Financial statement is what's considered an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion we can give as independent certified public accountants. States that your financial position and results of operations for that year ended September 30th, 2019 is presented fairly in all material respects. And that's the opinion you guys want. You guys are subject to both U.S. auditing standards and government auditing standards. And of course, the Florida Auditor General also throws in a couple additional requirements as well. So that's the second bullet point there, is internal control over financial reporting and compliance. This year we had no comments related to that. There was prior year in 2018, we had some issues with recording of year-end accruals, and we had no issues like that this year. So congratulations, Daniel and Michael from SDS. Next item is the Auditor General's report. The Florida Auditor General requires us to look at different items in the financial statements and look at those items. Some of them are recommendations, looking at prior comments, and we had no findings in regards to the Auditor General report and their required items. The Auditor General also has us look at the investment statutes of Florida and issue a separate accountant's examination report on that. And what we do is we look at the Florida statutes to ensure that the council is in compliance with those and your investments are in compliance with your own policies and procedures. And we had no findings related to that. So I always get asked about financial health, and that's on the next slide there. I'm always asking, how do you think we're doing? Are we doing well? So one of the things we do as part of the Auditor General procedures is do a financial condition assessment. And we look at the council over a 5-year period and then benchmark you against other similar type programs in the state of Florida. So with that, we're able to report that you have an overall favorable financial condition. We're able to look at 14 indicators for you this past year. 12 were favorable, 1 was unfavorable, and 1 inconclusive. So that's very good. We wouldn't be required to have a comment unless we were hit unfavorable overall. So you guys are well above that standard. Next, a little bit more on the numbers, kind of what happened this year from a pure financial standpoint. Your general fund increased. It's on the next slide there, Kayleen. And you increased your general fund by about $500,000. That's primarily a result of timing of your projects. So your revenues are relatively consistent. Your member contributions stayed about $1.5 million for the year from the counties and the water management districts. Your federal grants increased just slightly, up $27,000, but those will correspond directly back with revenues. You recognize that federal grant revenue to the extent you have the federal grant related expenses. The specialty license plate monies, those were revenues were up just slightly, up $1.5 thousand, and spent about $74,000 roughly. So that leaves you about $294,000 left in the IRL plate monies. That money, of course, is restricted and can only be used inside the Indian River Lagoon. As noted there, your total expenditures were down $473, and that's mainly due to timing of project expenditures. So if you looked at you just have one fund, your general fund, and if you looked at that balance at year end, you would see an unassigned fund balance of about almost $1.8 million. And if you compare that, a common comparative is, say, looking at what's your total expenditures or transfers out for the year and what's it coming forward for the next year. So right now you're at 100%, or you have basically 12 months set aside. If you look at your 2020 budget, you'll see that drops down to about 80%. So you guys need that fund balance over time, because you need that money in order to make any matches. Also, since you have some grants that are cost reimbursement, you need that for pure cash flow purposes, because you're going to expend the funds, spend that cash out, and then you're going to wait for the federal reimbursements to come in. So this is very common for special districts similar to you to have this level in there. And I know Daniel and staff is also kind of working on kind of what's your practice going forward going to be there, you know, what level you should set as a minimum for that. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends no less than 2 months. So just to have that in the back of your mind. The next item we'll get is just some note disclosures of importance if someone's looking at your financial statements. 2 items. One is related to the Florida retirement system and OPEB. It's on the next slide there. And OPEB is very small. You guys work with Brevard County to pull off their insurance. So your 3 employees are with the Brevard County Shared Insurance Program. But with that, there's a requirement to report that in the financial statements and the related long-term liability associated with that. You're also members of the Florida retirement system. You guys joined that maybe the 2nd year you guys were in existence. And with that, you're required to record your percentage liability of the state retirement system, just like any other county or local government that has joined that multiple employer Florida retirement system. Your responsibility for that is always just to pay the employer contribution side. The employee pays 3% as well, but you are required to pick up that percentage liability on that. And just if you try to figure out comparative, that was up about $70,000 from last year, that related liability. That contribution from the state changes each July 1st, so there is an increase in what that percentage is. About 1% roughly is what it went up for this year as a percentage of payroll costs. I tried to make it short and sweet because I know you guys got a busy agenda, but always open for questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the audit as presented? I'm not seeing any. Kayleen, do you see anything?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Halloran. We appreciate it. Daniel, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I just want to say that Michael McGilliot from SDS did join us, and if he has any comments regarding the audit, I'll leave it up to him to say anything if he does.
Mr. McGilly, do you have anything?
No, I just want to compliment your auditor. It was actually a very smooth year this year. We were a little nervous with the challenges with COVID and everything like that, but we actually had quite a bit of the audit done when all that stuff started happening, and Jim Halloran and his company really did a phenomenal job being super smooth with getting this audit done and getting it done I want to say almost a month earlier than prior years this year. So it was a very good process. I appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
you. All right, to my board members, at this time, it is, we have a clean audit with no findings, which is always what we hope for. So that is fantastic news, but we will need a motion to accept that independent audit report.
Move approval.
All right, I have a motion by Doug, and I'll go ahead. And a second by Commissioner Wheeler. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you guys for all your hard work on that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, and looking forward to next year.
Definitely. And with that, we'll move on to item 9, which is the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program Management Conference Committee reports. I just want to thank, before we get started, all of the committee chairs and their committees for your service and for volunteering your time to get this done. I know it's been a little crazy lately, so we do appreciate everything that you guys have been doing to help us move our projects and our programs forward. So with that, we'll start with the Management Board report. Mr. Yulovich, welcome.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and council members. Jennifer DeMeo and the Fab Five from EPA and the Mayfield Trio -1. I hope all are well, as are your families. This past Tuesday, we held a Zoom meeting, the board meeting, which was preceded by a Finance Committee meeting. The Zoom meeting was smooth, outstanding prep and management by Kayleen and Kathy, and I'd be remiss not to give a special shout out to Kayleen. The board at the time was given excellent project updates and a very outstanding presentation from Dr. Ed Busby. Thanks to Chuck for reaching out to these types of folks. I did note to Dr. Busby that his report did bring out some envy, as he noted they had 40 monitoring stations, 4 process stations, and a hell of a research boat, which looks like the Grand Banks trawler. Relative to today's agenda, and as a result of the Management Board and Finance Committee discussions that took place this past Tuesday, the following is noted. Now, right now, personally, I'm fighting with a little mischievous part in me, because in reference to item number 7, you all just approved the audit report, and the mischievous part of me wants to say, the Finance Committee met and we thought it was a terrible audit and we really have some concerns. But I'm only kidding, okay? The Finance Committee reviewed, and in the words of Stu Glass, the chair, they were very satisfied with the work of James Moore and Company, and in particular, Daniel's work. Regarding agenda number 8 with Monty Falls promotion, as Susan noted, we had a void on the Management Board as a critical partner, and that void's now been filled with the appointment of Matt. In regard to your agenda number 10, as you recall, the project that you have not addressed yet, but comments relative to agenda number 10. As you recall, this project, more so the concept of partial funding, was a matter of debate at our last Management Board meeting and at your February meeting, causing negative votes. As I noted, the concern was not the project, but adhering to the process's integrity. As Daniel alluded in February, there was a potential to gain funding for this project, with the West Wabasa project coming in under budget and another project's withdrawal, the funds became available. The Management Board was assured that no projects were sacrificed nor leapfrogged. The board unanimously supported this matter, with all previous negative votes voting in favor. In fact, one of those prior negative votes made the motion to approve. In regards to your agenda items under new business, items 11A, B, and C, after discussion, the Management Board approved those unanimously. In regards to 11D, the Management Board approved unanimously, with the caveat that the door would always remain open for new and innovative topics that would benefit the IRL. In regard to the IRL economic update from 2016, the Management Board was very vocal in their support and value of an update, and the significant value of this report to the financial health of the lagoon. Relative to number 11E with two motions, 2020-04 and 2020-05, they were approved unanimously by the management board. In regards to number 11F, it's acknowledgement by the board that this is a creative way to harvest talent, with an understanding that we wanted legal to bless this. And all in all, it was an outstanding management board meeting. Again, one that I'm very proud to be a participant in, and honored to be the chair. And I cannot say enough about how easy things are, even for me, with the folks that we have in helping us. That's it for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. We do appreciate all the work that the management board and all the boards do. And under your leadership, I know you've been there a couple years now. It's been doing good stuff. We'll have to try to recruit somebody to help you out, although you're doing such a great job. We're going to keep it there.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Yulovich on the management board report? Right, seeing none, we'll move on to the STEM Advisory Committee. Dr. Jacoby.
Thank you. We likewise had a very productive Zoom meeting, and absolutely no major glitches. It was excellent. Again, we got updates on the various projects that were underway. As was mentioned, Professor Ed Buskey came over from Texas and told us a bit about the brown tide that they had there that lasted for years. And they were fortunate that they were actually undertaking a study of that part of the world at that particular time, so they were able to track some things as they occurred. There were definitely some similarities with some of the things that happened there in Laguna Madre, parts of it anyway. Salinities were high. They had a cold snap that actually was cold enough where the edges of those lagoons were actually ice. And they're quite saline, so that's pretty cold water. The grazers kind of got knocked on the head. We've seen that a little bit too in the Indian River Lagoon. They did go back and look, and brown tide had been in samples in the past. They used antibodies, labeled antibodies, to go find brown tide in the past. So it wasn't something that just suddenly appeared and then bloomed. It had been there, it just never had been dominant. Once again, we're seeing some of that with some of the new types of single-celled algae that we have in the lagoon. Larval fish were bothered by the brown tide. The brown tide in particular puts out a mucus coating that seems to bother things that try to filter feed it or eat it. One of the interesting things that they did was go back and take sediment cores, and from looking at stable isotopes in those sediment cores, they were able to determine that Laguna Madre had in the past 2,000 years been at times dominated by phytoplankton and then other times dominated by seagrasses. So the brown tide over the years that they had it definitely knocked their seagrasses out, just like our blooms have knocked ours out. We did go through the remainder of the agenda, approving the various requests. So Sewell's Point project, the budget amendment and resolution, the small grants as they were ranked and they should proceed. The RFPs, we agree that will stay the course for this year. Thought that joining the resilience partnerships was a good idea, and definitely thought the internships might be a valuable contribution.
Okay. Anything else?
Not for me.
All right, are there any questions for Dr. Jacoby? Seeing none, Dr. Jacoby, we appreciate it, and we appreciate your committee doing all this work via Zoom right now, so please extend our thanks to them. The next item is the Citizens Advisory Committee. Frank Catino.
Frank is not able to join us today, so I'll give that report.
Wonderful.
They met last Thursday to go over the small grants program. That was the primary focus of their meeting. They also recommended approval for all of the other agenda items that you'll be taking up today. Kayleen is going to talk a little bit later on, so you can also approve the small grants that were vetted through the committee. So productive meeting. I do want to say, actually, I think I'll hold that until Kayleen speaks about small grants. They have a focus for their next meeting that I'll tell you about when we go over small grants. But that's it. A good meeting, productive, went very smoothly through Zoom.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate everybody doing all the work on that too. And please tell them thank you.
Will do.
I'd like to note and introduce Jackie Thurlow-Lipich, who has joined us. Welcome, Jackie. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. The next item we're going to move on to is old business, item 10A, which is Sewell's Point project funding. Dr. DeFries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you all remember, last meeting, we reviewed our RFP list, ranked projects. The Sewell's Point project fell in only partial funding, and the direction from council was to have staff, move through that audit process, relook at our cash position, and see if we could bring that project into the funded list. We have done that. Dan was able to identify both a project that had been withdrawn and one that came under budget, and therefore no financial impact to our reserve with this motion. But the requested motion is to bring this project fully into our business plan as a fully funded project, and then to move forward as we move into next year's projects to get this one moving. So with that, I'll just turn it over to the board.
All right. Let's see. I believe Commissioner Campo with Sewell's Point did have a comment on this before the board. Commissioner Campo?
Thank you very much. I've had the opportunity to talk with Dr. DeFries between meetings, and this is my first experience with the Indian River Lagoon Council on a direct basis. And I just was praising him for his ability to incorporate volunteers into the process and to have a process and have pride in not only the people, but constantly tweaking, making it better. And I think it's a great role model for governmental agencies to be able to incorporate and leverage volunteers. So even though I'm helping with this project, it's been a very surprising and happy, pleasing situation to come into work with an organization that has both the professionalism and the buy-in from the community. And I hope that we get to work together, more in the future now that I've had this contact. The other thing that I wanted to add is separate from this project that you're viewing now, we recently expanded our septic to sewer project. Indian River Lagoon Council was not a part of that, but we've expanded that work from taking 200 septic tanks off of the Indian River, but 240, and the additional 40 lots directly on the Indian River in low-lying areas. So Sewell's Point is a peninsula east of Stewart, surrounded by the St. Lucie River and the Indian River Lagoon. And we're doing our part, and we really appreciate the partnership with the Indian River Lagoon Council and the resources that you've been able to help us, and just the camaraderie and being joined together for a joint purpose. We're trying to do our part where our operating budget is only about $2.5 million, but the septic to sewer project is going to end up being close to $3 million. And so we're trying to do our part with both the septic to sewer project and this project that you have in front of you today. The project that we're discussing today has got a lot of resiliency issues as well as water quality. But I will say recently we had a Zoom meeting of Sewell's Point, and this item was on there, and we got Zoom bombed. Zoom bombed is like a photo bomb, but someone had the ability to get into the Zoom and started carrying on about this project. So we're doing our part to try to improve the quality of the water as well as, you know, improve the infrastructure. And it really means a lot for us to have a partner with the Indian River Lagoon Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Campo. We appreciate you guys working with us through the process and coming up with such a great project. The board did address this issue at the February board meeting. Kudos to Dan for his hard work on the budget issues and getting it clear and easy and finding the money to move this potentially into the business plan. So thank you, Dan. You always do such a great job for us. At this time, if there is no questions or discussion on the project, we will need a motion to include the project in the fiscal year 2020-2021 funded project list and in the fiscal year 2020-2021 business plan pursuant to the adoption of Resolution 2020-04 under new business item B, and to authorize staff to negotiate and enter into contract pursuant to budget authority and availability of funds.
Madam Chair, Zadowski moves approval as stated.
Thank you.
All right. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Zadowski and a second by Ms. Lipich. Any other comments? Seeing none.
We have one, I think Jackie may have a comment. I saw a hand up, Jackie.
Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't see the hand raise feature on this Zoom set, so I'm sorry, I'm just raising my hand. I just wanted to thank everybody who followed through on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. Other comments? Or you could just raise your hand as Jackie did to get our attention if you don't see it. All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you again, Commissioner Campo, for working with us on this. We appreciate it. All right, the next item is going to be Indian River Lagoon Council Board alternates. There is no motion on this, but I just wanted for informational purposes to remind everybody, all of our board members, if you don't have an alternate, please make sure that you find an alternate or have one appointed. While we always love to see everybody and our board members at meetings, sometimes things come up and we just want to make sure that everybody's being represented and everybody's got a voice at the table. So if you don't have one, I see Ms. Commissioner Wheeler, please go ahead and appoint somebody. Yes.
Yes, as you see, Volusia is on the list. I have that taken care of. We are going to be sending a letter to you. Probably this week it'll go out. And we are appointing Dr. Fred Lowry. He's one of our council members, and he'll be great. He's also a fishing guide, so he's very interested in this. So you will be getting that from Volusia County.
Fantastic. And of course, we hope, and I mean this kindly, that we don't have to see him that often because we love seeing you, but we just want to make sure everybody's got a seat at the table and can participate. So thank you for that. We will move on to new business. The first item under new business is our budget amendment for fiscal year 2019-2020. And I'll turn it over to Dan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Resolution 2020-02 brings our fund balance from our audit that you just heard earlier into that budget, and there's no major changes to any line items, no changes to salaries and benefits, facility expenses, administrative costs, or administrative services. What you'll see on the side-by-side is that there's a drop in revenue, but that drop is from previous projects that were already identified, and those are now in that fund balance of $2,066,966. If all expenditures were met at 100%, including our reserves, we would have $5,627 left at the end of the year, and that amount will carry forward, as you'll see, into the next resolution. So all this does, as you can see in your detail, is identify and reconcile that entire fund balance from audit.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the budget amendment? All right, seeing none, we will need a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-02, amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget based on annual audit reconciliation. And we are
Motion to adopt, Wheeler.
Thank you. And I will second that. And we are going to do this as a roll call just because it is a budgetary issue. So the first, Mr. Watkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Thurlow-Lipich.
Aye.
Mr. Bornick.
Aye.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith. Oh, aye. Okay, I see you nodding. Sorry. Commissioner Zadowski.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. And Commissioner Heatherington, for the record, is not with us currently. All right, with that, we'll move on to the fiscal year 2020-2021 pursuant to Indian River Lagoon Council policy and Florida statutes.
All right, so this is Resolution 2020-03. Back in February, we presented a fiscal year tentative budget. So per Florida statutes, we have to pass a final adopted budget for this upcoming year. This is Resolution 2020-03. Kayleen, next slide. So this is just the main highlights of this resolution. The main changes is we are increasing our other expenditures by $123,846. $118,219 of those dollars were identified, as noted earlier, from the West Wabasso Septic Sewer Phase 2 project that came in under budget at $68,219, and $50,000 from the city of Fellsmere. Unfortunately, they could not come up with a match for that project, so they withdrew it. And then we have that $5,627 that you had in the prior budget resolution at end of year. So $93,973 of that will fully fund the Sewell's Point project, and the remaining $29,922 will go into our reserve at this point, bringing that reserve for the upcoming fiscal year to $88,876. And you will see that there are no other line item changes, no changes to salaries and benefits, facility expenses, administrative costs, or administrative services as presented in the tentative budget back in February.
All right. Are there any questions for Dan on this? Do not see any. All right. So if there isn't, we will need a motion to approve this reconciliation after independent audit.
Move approval. Zadowski.
I have a motion by Commissioner Zadowski, and I will be happy to second that. We're going to do this as a roll call as well because it is a budget issue. Mr. Watkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Thurlow-Lipich.
Aye.
Mr. Borney.
Aye.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith. Thank you. I'm an aye. Oh, Commissioner Zadowski, I forgot you. I'm so sorry.
I've been forgotten before. Aye.
And Commissioner Heatherington is not with us. So with that, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dan, for all your work on that. Our next item is going to be the 2020 Small Grants Program Proposal Scores and Funding. And I will turn this over to Kayleen.
Okay, so a week ago last Thursday, the CAC met and they had chosen to review all of the proposals received for the small grants program as a group, we received a total of 37 proposals, coming up to about $138,000 worth of ask. The budget in this program was only 28 or 25,000. So through their discussions and scoring processes, they came up with these 7 potential funded projects for your consideration. The management conference also met and discussed these on Thursday, and they have all approved these as they're shown here.
All right, are there any questions of Kayleen on the projects as presented?
If I could interject just for a sec, I was going to say one more thing about the small grants. CAC has decided at the focus of their next meeting is going to be to revisit the proposal criteria and the eligibility criteria for small grants. They just want to be sure that the intent of the funding is hitting the right folks and that the people who receive funding are indeed small proposals. So we had a number of proposals, about 5 or 6 of them from universities, some of the larger nonprofits, and really the intent of the small grants program was to be to truly small proposers where the small pot of money, 500 to 5,000, would really move the ball forward for their programs. So they're going to revisit that and make sure that the people who are allowed to apply for this are the ones that they want to help with the funds.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, it's Dwayne. I just wanted to go on record thanking the Citizen Advisory Committee. I was listening to their discussion, which was, not just very in-depth, but they are thinking ahead, not just to next year, but beyond, and beginning to shape what may very well be a very powerful view for how we do citizen engagement in education. And so I'm really excited to have seen this discussion about, where do small grants fit in relationship to the larger communication package that Kathy and Kayleen work on. And so we'll be bringing back some of that story to you all in our August and fall meetings as we move forward.
Thank you. All right, other comments? Seeing none, we will need to have 2 motions on this item. The first item is a motion to accept the IRL NEP Management Conference recommendation and approve the final ranked list of proposals.
Motion to approve, Wheeler.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Wheeler with a second by Jackie. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Then the next motion will be to accept the management conference recommendations to fund the top proposals, contingent and consistent with available funds and budgetary authority, and authorize staff to negotiate and enter into contracts with those applicants. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Zadowski with a second by Mr. Borney. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And just to echo Dr. DeFries's comments, do thank very much the Citizens Advisory Committee and thank them for their thoughtful approach to relooking at the criteria for the small grants program. I think that's a wonderful thing. We do appreciate that. All right, the next item under new business is going to be item D. That's fiscal year 2021-2022 requests for proposals, categories, and priorities. Dr. DeFries.
Good morning, everybody. Inspired by the discussion at the Citizen Advisory Committee, staff approached both the management board and the STEM AC last week with a similar question. And so we are moving, well ahead of schedule to start thinking about this 2022 request for proposal cycle, which would begin in the fall, go through our iterative process with you all, then into that preliminary budget in March of next year. And so, Kayleen, could I have the next slide, please? And so we have been operating for the last couple years with 4 major categories of broad RFP calls. Water quality, which you remember, really about shovel-ready projects as well as planning, design, and engineering to get projects shovel-ready. Habitat restoration. A year ago, we separated the citizen engagement in restoration to a separate RFP, and then science and innovation with a general focus on nutrient reduction and then ecosystem health, human health. And I wanted to make sure that, at this juncture, we're 5 years in, to kind of check and ask those advisory boards, are we on track? Are you happy with where we are? Do you want to make some, either minor or radical change-ups looking forward? And we had some good discussion about this, but both committees recommended that we stay the course. And we specifically pushed a little bit on science and innovation and asked, do you want to really narrow that down to some specific targeted areas? And the general consensus was that, we can narrow down in our review process, but let's keep the calls broad. So we had support to move forward with these 4 categories to develop them and get prepped for issuance. And then staff made a recommendation, something we talked about last year. So we currently have $25,000 in our current budget, and I was hoping to go solicit and get additional funding to start to look at updating the 2016 economic study that was delivered by our partners at the regional planning councils. I'm convinced more now that we're in this COVID moment that we need to have this as a priority. We have this data. It needed to be updated after 5 years. I think COVID gives us an opportunity to look at economic impacts. And so the request would be to prepare an RFP to do this economic study. This would be a new RFP. You are not obligated as a board to actually move forward to issue, but between now and August, we will get these. Should you choose to move on this motion to develop and give us authority to release, it's my intent to bring the whole story back to you in August under old business, just to let you know where we are. We'll have a better, hopefully a little better idea where we are coming out of COVID. But I do think it's time to kind of think about this economic study and the power it might bring if we had some economic impacts, and also some addition of ecosystem services, which was not calculated in that original study. I'll continue to look for partners and for dollars on this. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board for questions. But basically, you will see this again, even with this motion in August, just to update. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. DeFries on this item? Any comments?
Madam Chair, this is Doug Borney. My comment is, Dwayne, I think this is a good idea. The economic impact of this lagoon is even broader than we all first thought when we started our journey. And I stand ready to meet with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council with you. And I know a number of the commissioners serving on this council also are on that and can help convince that staff to participate. I think it's a no-brainer. It's the right recommendation, and I so move.
All right, wonderful. We have a motion by Mr. Borney, and I'll be happy.
Second, Wheeler.
Commissioner Wheeler will second that. Fantastic.
Madam Chair, to comment. As that moves forward, if it's accepted and it's passed today, I would ask that the regional planning councils reach out to the tourism groups in each of the counties associated with the lagoon for added information, because there is a great deal of information we may not be seeing, or they may not see.
Wonderful. That's a fantastic idea. We appreciate that. Other comments or suggestions?
Can you see me?
Yes, there you are, Jackie. Go ahead.
I dropped my mouse, so somehow my screen's changed. I apologize. I just wanted to say I think this is an excellent idea, and I was so happy to hear this. And I remember all the work Mike Busha did on this. I think it was 2017, and how useful it was. And also with our partners on the west coast of Florida, I mean, they have used their economic information to really change the game. So excellent idea. Thank you very much. I'm in full support.
Wonderful. Other comments? Seeing none, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have just one more slide that I wanted to let you all know for information purposes on these RFPs, just so you see where we're headed. Every year we have fine-tuned this process, and thank you all as a board. You have been dedicated to, you know, maintaining the process that we set, and I really do appreciate that. I think it's important that transparency and process clarity follows through in these grant, you know, procedures. We had, you know, some what I would call outlier data for the first time ever in the last round. And so I just wanted to let you know that we've assembled information already from all of our advisory councils. I wanted to open that opportunity for you individually as well, you know, because you've been through this a few times now. If you have any recommendations on process, we will be between now and August, you know, making changes. They're minor, but they're important. And I just wanted to let you know that our continuing dedication to not just process, but excellence will continue every single year. You know, there's no sense of ownership. We just want to make this better every single year. And so we're gonna change up a couple minor things to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. This is a good thing for us. All right, moving forward, our next item is item E, Coastal Resilience Partnerships. Dr. DeFries?
We have two motions for you today, and both of these would be having the IRL Council and Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program join two association and partnership programs in a formal way. So item I is a motion to adopt a resolution 2020-04 for us to join the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership as an advisory board member. I've been serving individually in that capacity for the last 3 months, but want to formalize this as a full association relationship. And just for the record, this is a international and national association from the Central Atlantic states all the way down to U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And so we'll take that one first, and then we can go to the next one.
So the first motion is to adopt resolution 2020-04 to join the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership as an advisory board member.
This is Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch. I would like to make that motion.
All right, there's a motion by Jackie. I'll go ahead and second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right.
The second item is actually a regional item. And since we were talking about Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, my understanding is that down in St. Lucie, there may be a similar kind of regional collaborative starting to form. But this resolution 2020-05 would be for us to join the East Central Florida Regional Resilience Collaborative. This technical advisory committee is a combination of regional agencies as well as communities, and in fact reaches beyond just East Central Florida, some counties and cities. My understanding is this actually began in Volusia County. And so we have, because of our active leadership on the climate ready estuary planning with EPA, now become a resource for these collaboratives. Hopefully in August, you'll get to see our final climate ready adaptation plan. It's really close to finalization, but this action is to formally join this association and actively participate on their technical advisory committee. Madam Chair.
All right. Are there any questions on this? No? All right. We will need a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-05 to join the East Central Florida Regional Resilience Collaborative Infrastructure Technical Advisory Committee. That is a mouthful right now.
Motion to adopt, Wheeler.
Zadowski, second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wheeler with a second by Commissioner Zadowski. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Wheeler. Just want to thank you so much for this. I am a board member of the East Central Florida Regional Planning Commission, as well as I was a member that put together the resilience plan, and Volusia County was one of the first ones to sign on board. So we just really appreciate having Indian River Lagoon as a part of this important gesture, pulling this all together.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler. Commissioner Zadowski.
Yes, Dwayne alluded to it, but we have moved forward with a county-wide process where each of the cities, including St. Lucie Village, have identified Environmental Resources Department and the Oxbow staff to lead this up. And we are currently in a process by which to secure a number of sponsorships and grants to move that forward. So we would like to be a part of that and help out and collaborate where possible. And thank you.
Fantastic. I think the more collaboration we can have across the board, the better all the time. And I'm going to assume, Dr. DeFries, that as this moves forward, you'll continue to keep us updated on the workings of the two committees and partnerships.
Yes, I will. And in thinking about kind of this international, national, and regional, local opportunity, between now and our next meeting, I'm going to try to think about a more formalized way to communicate kind of that information, especially as it relates to the SCDRP, the Southeastern Caribbean. Those meetings have been profoundly valuable to me as an executive director. And we've been deeply in discussions about, how do you, for example, respond to a hurricane if we're still under social distancing, challenges with COVID. And so I'm going to try to think of a way to formalize a communication line. So what I experience in these board meetings, I can share down. So as you have needs within your counties, make sure you let me know who that point person might be within the counties. I'll reach out to both water management districts. And of course, I think you're all aware that we did have a statewide resilience officer who unfortunately we lost to our current president. And so once the governor reappoints that resilience officer, we'll be connecting kind of up to DEP at the state level so we can coordinate. But resilience is a priority with Governor DeSantis within the both districts and also DEP. So yes, I will, start to formalize a communication chain on that.
Wonderful.
Madam Chair Wheeler, Dwayne, that appears that it could be a Caribbean partnership that requires a field trip. Just saying.
What do you think, Commissioner Wheeler? All right, there is a motion to adopt with a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And again, I think this is wonderful for our organization to be affiliated with these two advisory committees. It just elevates our voice. So thank you, Dr. DeFries, for being a part of that. And Commissioner Wheeler, let's talk about this field trip later on, next agenda. All right, the next item is going to be item F, which is our COVID-19 response, bridging the gap with summer internships. Dr. DeFries.
Well, I'm going to kind of set this up, but first I want to thank each of you on the board. As we briefed you individually, our evolution of thought on the value of this kind of matured a bit. So I'm going to tell you where we are, because there's a couple of tweaks that have evolved over this week of discussion, which I'm going to share with you today. So first and foremost, when COVID hit, you know, the governor declared an emergency. My staff and I put our heads together and asked the question, you know, is there a place for the IRL Council and the NEP to, you know, not just be a proactive partner, but actually do something that would be valuable in this emergency response and hopefully recovery? Our initial thought was a summer internship that was more focused to professionals. So we had this discussion during the week, and I had this discussion also with Carolyn Yancey, our attorney, because internships do have some, you know, some specific meanings when you look at employment law. And so I'm going to explain kind of where we are. But what we're proposing is to create 10 internships through a grants program. Those are in your package. Each of those has a fixed fee with consideration for the workload that would take to do the scope of work deliverables. And the idea that this would be open to, you know, really 2 levels of qualification, you know, if you agree for us to make this call. Number 1, demonstrated need, which would be, you know, have you been furloughed? Are you out of work? You know, have you lost your business? You know, is there a need maybe for some bridge funding? And number 2, are you bringing a skill set and an expertise to actually deliver the scope of work that's assigned to each of these 10 internships? So in the red, you can see a slight tweak on the motion as it was presented in the original agenda, and as we discussed earlier this week, to allow me to work with Carolyn Yancey and my staff to really do 2 things in the announcement. So no change to those 10 internships and the delivery. But what we want to do is to fine-tune the language to make sure, number 1, that anybody who responds to this needs to be aware that what we don't want to happen is that somebody might put their unemployment, you know, position at risk by taking a grant. So a bit of a language caveat in the announcement. And then we had some suggestions this week, which I really embraced, that, you know, it's not just professionals, you know, that, you know, are out of work, but we just have an entire cohort of college graduates that just hit the workforce this week, you know, with degrees, whether they're undergraduate degrees or graduate degrees. Might we want to open this just a little bit more to a broader audience? And so the suggested motion from staff is to authorize myself to work with my staff and Carolyn Yancey, you know, to modify the grant announcement to broaden it, and then also to have some specific language so we've addressed any employment or legal issues. And then to approve and move forward to fund these 10 internships contingent and consistent with available funds, which we've identified, and the budget authority, which you would approve in the direction to move forward with these 10 internships. So I'll open for questions at that point.
Questions for Dr. DeFries? Doug, did you have a question?
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Borney.
Second, Wheeler.
And with a second by Commissioner Wheeler. Any further discussions, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I would just like to thank everybody, the council staff and the management conference for thinking outside the box on this and trying to bring something positive, positive contributions to our COVID recovery. So I think this is going to be a very good thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it moves forward. So thank you for that, everybody. It's awesome.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And you know, this is kind of uncharted waters for an NEP, I think, you know, and it's such a direct, rapid response. You know, you all told me when I first took this job, don't be bureaucratic. Let's make this, you know, move forward. You know, don't think like a government. And you all have just done, with your motion, you've just done that. I mean, it's a quick turnaround, you know, to deliver this kind of a product. And I think it's also a good example of why having some cash reserves is very, very important as we move forward to allow us to have some of that flexibility and ability to adapt to situations. So thank you all. We'll keep you posted, and my hope is that maybe in our fall meeting, we'll bring those 10 grant recipients in to actually showcase what they did for you all.
That would be awesome. I look forward to that. All right, the next item moving forward is going to be our executive director's report. Dr. DeFries, you're up again.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly through this. First and foremost, I want to assure everybody that, you know, we are working basically as business not as usual, but with business getting done as planned. And so everything that we envisioned as a deliverable this fiscal year, we are going to get done this fiscal year. A couple of the projects in our larger reports that we anticipated might need a second year, like to manage, you know, the habitat restoration plan, the monitoring plan. I'm pretty clear that, you know, we'll have draft information as we move to the end of the year, but we probably will need those second years as anticipated. But I also want you to know that in an abundance of caution, because I know each of you are having challenges trying to pre-anticipate what revenues might be as we move into fiscal year 2021, that I've asked Dan to negotiate all of the contracts that we have coming up to start October 1, but not to sign. We will not execute any of those contracts. We're going to hold them for a bit just to see where we stand on our revenue position. But, you know, we're hoping it's business as usual, that we come into the fiscal year in sound fiscal shape and continue the work, you know, the good work that we've started with clean water. On the federal legislative update, or the Florida legislative update, you've heard from Senator Mayfield. Stay tuned, you know, until the governor decides whether he wants a special session or possibly just moves to, you know, exercise his authority with his veto pen. We'll just stand, you know, ready to respond as we see that budget get transferred from the legislature to the governor. And so we'll wait to see on that. I do want to spend a few minutes on the federal side, because I have spent a lot of my time, both as your executive director and now the new kind of government guy with the Association of National Estuary Programs. And so last meeting, I informed you about our reauthorization and our reappropriation. So reappropriations for 2021, letters had been moving both in the House and then beginning in the Senate for appropriating to the full amount that was authorized in our previous reauthorization, which we're still in. And so that activity is in place, kind of going through what I call normal due diligence process. I also shared with you at the last meeting that our reauthorization bills, we had two strongly supported bipartisan bills, HR 4044 on the House side, and I shared a copy of that with you last meeting, and Senate Bill 3171 on the Senate side, which I also shared with you. There were some differences in those two bills. I just want to remind you where that was. So both bills were proposing our fiscal year 22 to 27 reauthorization, appropriations changing from $26.5 million for the NEP nationally to $50 million nationally. The Senate bill addressed both an appropriation level and authorization of the competitive grants program. The House bill did not. And so coming up to just a few weeks ago, I was anticipating that we would see normal business take those two bills, to a conference. We would see some reconciliation. As you all know, appropriation moves independently of reauthorization, and I'd be coming back to you with an update on, what I would call normal process. Here's where we are as of the last 24, 30 hours. So one of the bills that we are very, very supportive of, and you have, formalized it in our new CCMP, is making sure that our partner program down in the Everglades restoration is moving forward because of our southern connections. The WRDA bill is up for its 2-year reauthorization. There's a lot of activity going on in language changes. Some of it is controversial, and and those are happening. Many of you are probably tracking some of the language amendments going on right now with WRDA. But in markup this week, our reauthorization came into WRDA markup. And the language as it stands right now is recognizing reauthorization, recognizing our current status on appropriation at 26.5 million, with a recommendation that for 2021 and 2022, that the authorization level would move to that higher level of $50 million. And so what it in effect does, if I'm interpreting this appropriately, and I need to reach out to both Senate staffers and some of my people, it looks like if this moves forward, as WRDA, that it would allow us to be considered for a higher appropriation 1 year earlier. It would also put into language, congressional language within the WRDA bill, a 2-year reauthorization at that higher amount. And then what I'm not clear about now is, do we then reauthorize in 2 years? How does that, interact with authorization as it would have moved forward? I think overall this is really good news in two fronts. And number one, we're seeing bipartisan support for a greater federal appropriation for the NEP. But most importantly, we're seeing commitment, both parties, both House and Senate, for clean water. And this is particularly true with our Florida delegation. So, thank you to our Indian River Lagoon delegation, both House and Senate, but also to the Florida delegation in general, for really taking leadership on clean water issues for Florida. One thing I do want to mention briefly is that many of you are aware that there's a dialogue going on very actively in Washington about a possible fourth stimulus package that is related specifically to recovery and specifically to infrastructure support. With staff request, ANEP, on behalf of all the national estuary programs, and I was involved in the letter, has sent a letter to House and Senate leadership, both minority leadership and majority, basically saying that the National Estuary Program stands ready if they want to move water infrastructure money through the NEP, that we've got the mechanism with our programs and our management conferences to do that in a fully transparent and responsible and structured manner. And so we have a letter, basically, they asked for a number. And so basically the number that we suggested was $10 million per NEP. Remember, there's 28 of us nationwide, $100 million for consideration within the competitive grants program that the EPA oversees. As of just the last 24 hours, I've seen a House letter that's circulating among the Democrats for a substantive infrastructure bill. I want to, this is by no means, moving forward in a bipartisan manner yet, but we're in play. So, should something come out of Washington, the NEP program is on the record, standing ready to support Congress when they decide how they want to move in a bipartisan position. We will be there and advising and making ourselves available in that COVID recovery as necessary and as requested by Congress. We're not taking any positions. We're just standing ready to help. So I'll keep you posted as that moves forward. And then lastly, if you see those last bullets, we have a lot in play right now, multiple white papers and reports. And I just want to throw 3 kudos out to staff. So Dan has submitted his mid-year progress report, which you have, in your package, and has been one of the first NEPs to put our annual work plan in for EPA for next year. And Dan has been working hard to meet those obligations. You don't see how much work there is in that federal reporting side, but part of that is also we have to close out our fiscal year or our 5-year grant with EPA on or before September 30th. So we're obligating whatever remaining dollars are in that 5-year commitment right now. Kayleen is working, on top of doing all the things she did to make sure these meetings move smoothly. Kayleen is also cross-referencing every BMAP project in all of the BMAPs and the projects that have been proposed in the Mosquito Lagoon Reasonable Assurance Plan with all of those projects that are on our project list, so we can begin to track kind of what's moving forward in the regulatory world versus what's moving forward in the non-regulatory NEP world. And in some cases, there's an overlap, where we're funding some of, the local cost share support on regulatory. And then lastly, Kayleen and staff have worked really hard. I know all of you are doing this, especially at the cities, but at the end of this month, the IRLcouncil.com website, will be retired. Anybody who uses that URL will be automatically advanced over to the new website, which is active, onelagoon.org, and that is now accessible for ADA. So we are in compliance on accessibility. Some of you will notice that, some of that long historical document information isn't there, and we will slowly bring that on as budgets and time allows, because going back in that archive, number one, it's a lot of work to get ADA accessibility on some of these PDFs. And we're asking the question, how to do that in an effective and efficient manner. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you, everybody. Thank you to my staff. They've been working really hard to make sure, we're on target to end this year, 100% in the deliverable position, and just stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update. I think the onelagoon.org is a great thing, and I'm looking forward to checking that out and updating my bookmarks. So with that, if there's no questions for Dr. DeFries, we'll move on to council member reports. And I'm just going to go down the list that we use for introductions. So Mr. Watkins, anything to
Not much. Obviously, the department's still open during COVID. We're all teleworking. We're completing a lot of work. We anticipated, as folks were home, we might be getting more complaints, and that came to fruition. I think last week, Central District received a record number of folks calling in, inquiring and wanting us to investigate various complaints. So we're on top of that. We're doing that work diligently and timely, and completing inspections, processing permits. The work's continued on our end. And other than that, I want to thank the council for putting together the Zoom meeting. It worked pretty good. I tried to get a good background, but my bright bald head kind of interrupted the algorithm that they were trying to put the background up, so it didn't quite work. So other than that, thanks everybody.
Thank you. All right, Jackie, you're up next. How are you? Anything to report?
Yes, I've just unmuted myself. There's a lot to report, but I'll try to keep it succinct, since I know it's appropriate to be succinct. But if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to call me to talk about things. So first of all, the district's doing well. It was quite a feat to adjust to COVID. Executive Director Drew Bartlett did a stellar job, along with staff, adjusting. Of course, some people can't go into COVID because they're sitting in, like in a canal area, protecting people from getting flooded. So sitting in a structure, basically. So I know that Chris knows all of this, but a lot of things have happened for the C23, C24 STA reservoir. It's extremely exciting, and it's time. That thing's been on the books forever. Long story short, the district, after researching this for way too long, finally changed the footprint for the STA reservoir. And that's because there were cultural resources, Indian burial remains and such, and you cannot cover those up. And so the new footprint is slightly smaller, but it will still be effective. And so that land transition has been made. The second part of that is that just really in the past 2 days, it's become apparent that the C23, C24 reservoir is receiving, I believe the right number is about $130 million extra of funding for design, and going as far as they can with that. The bittersweet part of it is it appears for now, and of course all this could change, there's politics and there's science and all sorts of other things, but that money is coming out of what would have been going to the EAA reservoir, which is really what went through with Joe Negron, and Governor DeSantis has that as part of his mission in 1912, so I'm sure he'll be working on that. And a new start status, simply put, kind of means that a project can't get its funding until it goes through a new start with the Army Corps of Engineers. And that should be a simple thing, but we all know that with the Army Corps, it's not always a simple thing. So that will all get worked through. In the meanwhile, the district received a permit just a couple of weeks ago to begin the stormwater treatment intake canal for the EAA reservoir. So that's very exciting. And we're celebrating that and moving forward, like no matter what happens, we're finishing this. And I just want to mention that the rulemaking for 40E61, the first date for that meeting, you can look it up online, but it's March 19th. And that's very important because that's within the administrative code. The district is addressing the works of the district, which are the canals that other canals go into, and the nutrient levels, et cetera, going into those water bodies, which can be expensive and controversial. So there's a lot going on, and the district is working for the people, and that is good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Next up is Doug Forney.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thanks. I travel the lagoon a lot, fishing and diving and surfing, and I've been on it extensively from Martin County up through St. Lucie and Indian River counties, and then up into southern Brevard County just yesterday. And the lagoon looks so healthy right now. It's wonderful to see the bottom and to see blue water in the Indian River Lagoon going miles away from the mouth of the inlets, north and south. So it's just nice to see it that healthy, at least healthy looking. I haven't seen it that blue and that clean in a long, long time due to the heavy rains we had the last few years. So it's just beautiful to see it that way. We're working to still reconnect South Florida with St. John's to take about 150,000 acre feet or more out of the lagoon, from bludgeoning the lagoon in St. Lucie and Martin counties. It still can be done. So we're working behind the scenes on that. And the famous Safe Harbor Agreement is moving forward. That will give landowners the relief they need to know that if once they're done with water farming, they can go back to their original footprint and farm again if they choose, or sign back up to whole water to benefit the lagoon in the long run. So some positive things happening to augment what Jackie reported on in the C23-24 basin. We're going to get there, and there's some big steps being taken, and it's nice to see.
Fantastic. It's good to hear that progress happening. Thank you for that. Council Member Wheeler, you're up. What's going on?
Thank you. Yes, we have a report that the Ariel Canal Water Quality Improvement Project, the project is identified within the Mosquito Lagoon Reasonable Assurance Plan as a project that will contribute to the reduction of nutrient loading into the Mosquito Lagoon. And this project is located in River Breeze Park and Oak Hill area and entails relocation of the existing upstream diversion weir and modifications to the two existing stormwater ponds and construction of an intervent treatment system for the purpose of providing water quality and nutrient load reduction to the stormwater runoff conveyed by the Ariel Canal prior to its discharge in the Mosquito Lagoon. The completed project is estimated to remove 1,300 pounds of total nitrogen and 210 pounds a year of total phosphorus beyond what the current system is providing. And the design and permitting contract awarded to Jones, Edmonds and Associates by the County Council on October 2019. Currently, the project's design and permitting is in progress and scheduled for October 2020. And a legislative appropriation request was submitted for the project funding, and we're waiting notification on that. And a grant fund application was submitted to the Florida Department of EPA, and we're waiting notification on that. And I just want to do a shameless plug on the Census 2020 as a co-chair for Volusia County for the complete count. Just to show you how important this is, Volusia County received $96.5 million of the CARES Fund directly because of the census count from 2010 put us over the 500,000 mark in population. So those funds are drastically important to all of us, and that's my shameless plug for Be Counted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wheeler. Commissioner Smith, anything to report? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to Commissioner Zadowski. What's going on down in St. Lucie County?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jackie.
Wait, Chris.
Thank you, Jackie, for,
Wait a second, you're still muted. There you go.
There I am. Sorry about that. I was doing so good up until now. Thank you, Jackie, for leading in with the information from South Florida and our opportunity to move ahead with the C-23, C-24. It's a long time coming. I know it's been my entire career here, and it was presented well in advance of me coming on board. And as the #1 project for the NEP over many years, we're happy to see it at least on the list and ready to go. We hope that we can achieve that, including the process by which Florida and that unfolds. As you said, there's a lot of politics involved. We have been disappointed before, so we're heading forward with cautious optimism and hoping for the best. Add that project into what Port St. Lucie has already invested over $10 million in the McCarty Ranch project on water retention, detention, and cleansing. I think it makes a great deal of an opportunity for us to quit dumping on Martin County through the St. Lucie River and to finally provide you relief in the Southern Lagoon. So we're optimistic. We're going to keep moving forward with that and hope for the best. St. Lucie County has joined with Martin, Indian River, and St. John's, as well as private individuals who have been discussing and trying to push forward with FDEP rules on biosolids, including Class AA biosolids. We believe it's an important component of our opportunity for cleaning up our waterways. As we know, we invest tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and sometimes billions of dollars to try and remove contamination from our systems. However, if we can relieve the process by not letting it in the first place, that'll save hundreds of thousands, if not millions and billions of dollars. So first step is to not let it get into the system, in my opinion, and that of many, many others who are looking forward to it. Commissioner Wheeler, you brought up the census. The unfortunate part is, yes, we need to have those numbers, but St. Lucie County has 335,000 people, and through the CARES Act, we received not a single dollar. So, you know, we have just as much expenses as any other county in the state and or in the country even. So census is important, so everyone needs to be counted. We're still not close to 500,000. But we know it's important, so I'll shamelessly plug in there with you. So, that being said, I'm not going to go into the projects. I'd rather provide you with video and pictures to support the projects. They're very exciting. The most recent, and I'll just quickly say, the Indian River Lagoon, Indian Hills outfall oyster bed restoration is showing incredible habitat renewal. So I want to bring that to you in pictures and video because it's really that really cool, and it goes with the Indian Hills project. So we keep building on those projects to even make a better outcome. That being said, I just want to wish everybody to be well and safe, you and your families. Thanks, everybody. Be careful.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sorry. Indian River County continues to work on some of our water quality projects. The Jones Pier project is moving forward. I got the ability to go out there. It's an outside habitat restoration project. It's coming along beautifully. It's on Jungle Trail, which is gorgeous. We have another couple of projects that are just finishing up. So I'll take a page out of Commissioner Zadowski's book, and I'll just bring some pictures and video for next time because it's always like to look at pictures. You know, I'm a visual person. So with that being said, thank you to everybody for being here and putting up with me conducting a Zoom meeting. I hope it wasn't too chaotic. I think we got a lot of really good work done and the conversation was fantastic. So I really appreciate that. For those of you that are not, you know, that are wearing pajamas, you couldn't tell. Everybody looks very professional. So thank you for that as well. Our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, July 31st from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at Sebastian City Hall, our normal place, although that is contingent upon our ability to kind of be in a phase of this where we are able to meet together. So we'll keep you updated, Commissioner Zadowski, although if you just want to hang out until July, you know, you can keep that seat warm.
I just want to thank Kayleen for letting me in the building. I came all the way up here and I'm actually here. So, and we've maintained social distancing and hold on, I have my mask and I have my sanitizer.
You're setting an example for all of us. Thank you for that. All right, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, then we stand adjourned. Be healthy and safe, everyone, and we'll see you in July.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody. All right, sanitized everything. Leave.